Census is a procedure of systematically acquiring, recording, and calculating population information about the members of a given population. The 2023 census of Nigeria will be detailed enumeration of Nigerian population that will be the 5th national census in the country since independence. It will be the first national census held since 2006. Over 190 billion naira have been allocated for the exercise. A pilot census was held in July 2002 to get ready for the final census in 2023. The help of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NCDC, has been requested by the chairman of the National Population Commission, NPC, in order to provide security. Now the question is, how important is census in Nigeria? Why do Nigerian government regard census as a tool of driving effective governance for the development? These are some questions we'll be looking at today on the program. I am Jumai Manson, joined by my guest, Chuks Akamadu. Chuks has a combined qualification in law management, public relations, corporate governance, tourism management, and cultural administration. He is currently a United Nations World Tourism Organization scholar. With respect to experience, he has over 300 published articles. You're welcome to Insight Today. Don't go anywhere. Insight Today will be back shortly. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight Today on Global Television, and today we will be looking at census. And for everyone out there wondering, census, why talking about it now? Well, guess what? There are so many issues surrounding the census of 2023, and like I said, I am joined by Chuks Akamadu. Good afternoon, and thank you for being a part of Insight Today.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Okay.
I'm pleased to be here.
Okay, now looking at it, what can you say generally when it comes to census? What's your take in the first word or caption that comes to mind?
Well, for me, census is a very critical economic exercise that societies undertake in order to plan very well and, of course, shape their economic destinies for the overall well-being of the citizens of a country. Census data, of course, helps in developing market strategies. It also helps in evolving the right distribution, production and distribution systems in a society. So census is a critical component of development economics that every nation, every serious-minded economy should take seriously. But of course, if you look at our climate, you'll find that our experience hasn't been the very best. If anything, it leaves a whole lot to be desired because, like you just noted, our last census was in 2006. And that's quite regrettable. 17 years ago. Yes, 17 years ago. This is an exercise that ought to take place periodically, at say, 10 years, at maximum, 10 years. But here we are. And then it still doesn't look as though that we are even very serious to undertake this exercise for the benefit of not just the federal government, but even the subnationals. And if you take a look at history, you also find that this lackadaisical attitude that we have towards major national undertakings such as census has always worked adverse outcomes on our national, on our corporate well-being as a people. In 1960, Nigeria's population was 45.1%. 45.1 million. That of Great Britain was 52.5 million. And of course, because we've not been taking issues of census very seriously, our planning, our national planning strategies have always suffered on account of that. That is why today Nigeria's population is put at somewhere around 220 million, whereas that of Great Britain, that was 52.5 million in 1960, is just 67.7 million in 2023. Wow. Now, you'll begin to understand why there is so much disparity when it comes to whether it's gross domestic product or gross national product or per capita income of these countries put side by side. So we are looking forward to a situation whereby government will begin to take issues of census seriously, because you cannot actually move a society forward without planning. Even if you look at the family unit, you agree with me that a man and a woman, mother and father, they sit down to plan. However microscopic that economy is, they don't take things for granted. They sit down and they say, oh, A is at school now, B would soon leave primary and enter secondary school.
Very true.
C and D are still toddlers. With that fact, with those set of facts, with that data, they are able to plan. That way, they can make projections into the future so that tomorrow doesn't take them by surprise.
So I would like to ask, what are the uncertainties that trails Nigerian census in Nigeria, in your own opinion?
Well, I think matters of census in this country are such that government have not evolved a system of procuring the people's buy-in. They still carry on census as though it's a government exercise. That way, without a people buy-in, you would always have issues as regards interest and enthusiasm. The moment federal government realizes that, oh, they can't clap with one hand, they need the support, they need the collaboration and the cooperation of the citizenry. They will now find a way of penetrating the people. Make it an all-stakeholder-driven project, so that market women would, in their enlightened self-interest, promote census exercise, so that political parties can, in their enlightened self-interest, promote census exercise, so that professional organizations, community leaders, religious organizations can also promote it. That way, that's when you attain optimal outcomes when you're in pursuit of this. But for as long as government sees it as a government program and all of that, you would agree with me that the people will always treat it as a government program without realizing that it is actually for everybody's benefit. If we conduct a successful census today, it's not going to be government benefiting from it. No, it's going to be all of us. Like I said, federal government, subnationals, all the key sectors of the economy, every facet of our national life would benefit from it. So there is that need for government to engage the people, for them to realize that they need co-ownership of that exercise by the mass of the Nigerian people. Then another issue, of course, you would agree with me, would be insecurity.
Of course.
Insecurity
is going to come to that.
Oh, good. Insecurity is another issue that might not help us achieve that which we would love to achieve. But again, you can never have 100% safe society anywhere in the world. I am of the view that insecurity is something that we should actually live with, and then think of a way of suppressing it as the days roll by. So it shouldn't be a major hindrance. It shouldn't be one reason that we will not do well in the forthcoming national exercise. Those whose responsibilities are to make sure that we are safe, we are secure, and all of that should up their games and ensure that Nigeria is better secure as at the time that this census exercise comes underway.
You know, from the last report that census was conducted, that was 17 years ago, 2006, and of course we saw the effort last year of the postponements and all of that. Do you think this has actually affected the basic amenities the government is supposed to provide for the populace of the country?
Of course. One thing is, well, if you look at the 2006 census, you would agree with me that it also came with its own controversies. And that's another major thing that this particular census exercise should try to avoid. We need to have faith in our census exercise. We need to have faith in the processes that lead to it. We need to make it as transparent as possible. Those who are going to handle the exercise must be credible people, and then they must be such that the people look at them and they believe that truly these ones are patriots. Because whether you like it or not, you cannot separate census outcomes in Nigeria, historically speaking, from our fault lines as a people, whether you're looking at the religious angle or you're looking at the ethnic angle. But as a nation, I think that this is an opportunity for us to demonstrate that indeed we are one nation tied under one destiny and working towards the greatness of this country, irrespective of our ethnic differences and our religious differences.
And then looking back, you mentioned a lot about the government, which is true. Now, let's look at it. Do you think the lack of there is no room for budget, there's no budget when it comes to census? Do you think is lack of commitment on the governance or the commitment of the national population census? Which of them do you think holds the greatest non-commitment when we're looking at the census in general?
Well, you will agree with me that part of why we are where we are today is because of issues of trust deficits we have in this country. Why? Because our leaders, or our so-called leaders, or quite a number of our leaders, carry on as though national interest should take a secondary place in the scheme of things, while their individual interests should take a primary place. That is not good. Census is supposed to be on the first line's charge. It's not supposed to be a negotiable thing. It's supposed to be the basis on which we can actually take off economically and plan for our nation. At every point in time, we should be looking at raw data. We should be guided by statistics. We shouldn't be doing guesswork. Government shouldn't be run on impulse. So I put the bulk of the blame, of course, at the table of the government, because they've been treating it with some level of levity which ought not to be so. I don't think the National Population Commission should carry the can on this particular matter. I think that funding budget has been perceived in error by the authorities as a luxury. Otherwise, if we had prioritized census, I can assure you we have enough money to execute it to the satisfaction of not just the government, but the people of Nigeria.
Now, you know, if you read the report, it says 200 billion naira has been spent for the preparation to conduct census in Nigeria. Now, do you think if those monies are not, will I say, accounted for, people that are involved should be probed, or it should just be a shove off or one of those incidents that happen that we do not account for the money that are brought into government for a particular conduct or a particular issue?
Unfortunately, I'll be reluctant to take a position on that. Why? Because what's uppermost on my mind is having credible census. I actually don't care how much it costs us, because I know that ultimately the benefits of having a credible census exercise in this country would advance the cause of Nigeria and Nigerians. So if they've spent 200 billions, oh, that's right. Well, this wouldn't be the first time that they will be spending billions and billions and billions in this country. But because this is a worthy exercise, because this is a very worthy cause, if they spend another 200 billion and give us credible census, I can assure you that the average Nigerian will not mind too much.
Now, looking at it, Nigeria has had we've conducted 5 census in 53 years. That's a long time. 5 times census has been performed. Do you think it has a damaging or positive effect on the country, on the economy, and of course the populace?
It cannot have any salutary effect on the economy. It cannot have any positive effect on the people of Nigeria, even in terms of investment. Let me tell you, when we talk about getting foreign direct investment, making sure that we grow a very resilient and robust economy and all, these things don't happen in vacuum. These things don't happen in the air. Prospective investors look at your country and look at the economic management system that you have adopted and see whether you take things like census seriously. If they find that you don't take things like census seriously, and then of course that you stumble on ideas from time to time, like I said earlier, you run government on impulse, there's no serious-minded investor that would want to come into an investment environment where things are fluid, where things are uncertain. So I tell you that because of our attitude to census in this country since independence, from independence till date, we have lost a whole lot in terms of goodwill, in terms of prospective investment that would have come into this country, in terms of planning, in terms of execution, in terms of allocation of resources, allocation of amenities to the various components of this country. Because it's when you undertake the census exercise that you now know that, oh, Damatru as a place needs so. In Omaya, where I come from, they have this peculiar need and all of that. That's when you now say in Jalingo, the housing deficit, it's so alarming and that they require special intervention. Without a census exercise, how would you do all of this? Guesswork.
Guesswork. All right, now let's go on a very quick break. Inside Today, we'll be back shortly. You are welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Inside Today on Global Television, and we're talking about a very sensitive issue. It's all about census. We're looking at the challenges and prospects, and I am not alone in the studio. I have Mr. Chuks Akamadu with me. Thank you so much, and he has been throwing so much light when it comes to census, when it has to do with governance, when it has to do with the people, and of course statistics, which is very important. And he mentioned something very critical. He said the 200 billion naira that was given for the preparation of the census exercise means it doesn't matter as long as the census is conducted and we have readily statistics available. All right, Mr. Chuks Akamadu, now still looking at this very critical matter. You know, we've mentioned how Nigeria held census for 5 years, for the last 53 years. I really need you to throw more light, because you said it will affect investments, it will affect development, it will affect foreign partners from coming in to invest with us and knowing areas of need. You actually mentioned, can you throw in more light?
What it simply means is that because we don't have data to work with, we don't have reliable data to work with, what happens is we cannot but suffer the pains and pangs of policy inconsistency, because there is no data that guides government from one government to another. And if that be the case, I am simply saying that the production factors would suffer. Our prospects for growth economically would suffer because we are working more or less blindly as a people. But when we have reliable data to work with, then people can sit down, do quality thinking, decide on where areas to invest in and areas not to invest in. I can assure you, if we had been very religious with issues such as census, the Jackpot syndrome that we're all talking about wouldn't have happened, because we would have foreseen what is happening now, and measures would have been taken by successive governments to nip this thing happening now in the bud. The Jackpot syndrome, whether you like it or not, has something to do with poverty of thought and policy failure on the part of government.
But I think the Jackpot syndrome, if we're going to deviate a bit, has something to do with better living. Other people going, like Nigerians going out of Nigeria to find
because
better livelihood because of the unemployment that we face in the country.
Why? Because their own economy has failed them. The economy failed them on account of the levity with which we treat issues such as census. That's what I'm saying. If we are taking issues such as census very seriously, I'm telling you that the planning arm of government would have made sure that we do work into this particular economic doldrum that has given rise for this current wave of migration that we that we have in the country at the moment.
All right, Mr. Chuks, I want to ask a very critical question. You know, 2002, very seriously, it was postponed due to the fact that elections came up last year.
Didn't they know that the elections were going to come?
Wait, let me land first, because of the elections and all of these distractions that came in play. But do you think if there weren't any distractions last year, with the rate at which that the Buhari administration was going, do you think census would have still held?
No, well, if you ask me, the Buhari administration knew that they were going to run into a hitch. Buhari's administration spent 8 years in office.
True.
You cannot be in office for 8 years and then you plan census exercise to coincide with an election period, a national election period. Who does that? He had his first day, he had his second year, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and you don't do all of that just because at some point, like I said, we run our government on impulse. Just because somebody must have touched him and said, "Oh, Mr. President of this administration, we need to take credit for organizing census. Let it be part of what we walk away with as our legacies for the country." I'm sure that was why they had to embrace it. It was poorly planned. That was why they could not execute it. It's akin to what happened with the Air Nigeria thing, that they told us, "Oh, we are going to have a national carrier and all of that." What happened eventually? They gave us an aircraft painted in national color, in our national colors, and today we can't find that aircraft. Just because they were in a haste to put an item that, "Oh, we've ticked this box. This is part of our legacies as a government." And again, then, like I said, if we were a planning-oriented people, if we had planning-oriented government, over time, we wouldn't be doing this national embarrassment and repeating them often like this.
Okay, if we're going to blame the fact that we did not conduct census because of the election we had last year.
You cannot say that, please, because it insults one's sensibilities. You knew the election come as a surprise to you.
I'm coming, Mr. Chuks.
No, you can't be speaking for the government. You cannot say it was because of the government.
In quotes, because that was what is, that's the
official position.
The official position
Go ahead,
that says the reason why census was not conducted was due to the fact that there were elections, and truly they were. And
the elections came upon us. No, it crept in on us. We didn't know that the elections were coming.
We knew, but wait a minute.
Don't insult me for that. No, okay, and Nigerians feel insulted when we talk like this.
I'm sure it was just poor planning, but that was what poor planning. Let's say poor planning. Now, looking at it now, do you think insecurity has a buckload to do with it when it comes to census? Because it would be unfair if we had the census collision of one particular state and we do not have in another particular state. Insecurity, do you think it had a key role to play in census not being conducted?
See, I don't think so. Like I said, we cannot have a perfectly secure society anywhere in the world. At all times, what societies try to do is to make the most of the situations they find themselves in. Our insecurity challenge today is different from that of United States of America, for instance.
Very true.
Oh, and again, it varies from that of Niger Republic or Benin Republic and all of that. You see, I mean, we have found we all deal with peculiar security challenges. And I'm saying that despite our peculiar security challenges, if we were bent, if we were truly determined to conduct a national census, we would have done that against all odds. Because you can never have a perfect environment for any such thing.
Now, looking at that now,
and again, sorry, ma. Yes, insecurity would have reared its ugly heads here and there.
True.
That would have been another data, useful data for future planning.
Now, that useful data for future planning, would it have been accurate?
Well, we would have worked with the accuracy of the places that the census held successfully. And what we would have just done was to, okay, let us say, let's eclipse those areas where it didn't happen or it didn't happen successfully and all of that. At the end of the day, what do? Is the mass of information, mass of data available to you that you now collate. After collating, you now sieve. After sieving, you now take away all these important ingredients to work with and all of that, and still go back to those ungoverned, quote unquote, ungoverned spaces that were not captured. You won't leave them out. But it's now going to help you, if of course it will even help even the military, our security agencies, and to know that, oh, these are areas they need to intensify efforts. Government will also, the National Assembly will also have a basis to say, oh, this particular area, because there are dark spots, we think that more money should be approved for the security agencies and the military and all of that. But not doing it at all makes us walk blindly. That's what I'm saying.
And looking at that makes a lot of sense when you talk about insecurity and, of course, not working blindly when it comes to accuracy during census. Now, looking at this, can we say we have an accurate record when it comes to birth control, the births and the deaths record in Nigeria as a whole, looking at it critically?
No, I don't think so. The reason is obvious. Our literacy level in this country does not even encourage that. We still have a predominantly illiterate communities in the hinterland, rural communities, and all of that. That is one. And then another factor again is that government is also yet to get the people to co-own that culture, to imbibe that culture of registering deaths and registering birth. Yes, because we don't, the average Nigerian does not see it as service to the society, because it's actually, you're being patriotic by saying, oh, we lost someone, or we've given birth to triplets and all of that. You're contributing to economic planning of your nation. Do you understand? So if the federal government, government at all levels, federal, state, local, local government areas, area councils and all of that, if they take it upon themselves to carry out sustained enlightenment campaigns amongst the people of Nigeria, the people of Nigeria will now realize, oh, it's actually in our own interest to register births and register deaths. But they are making it look like, oh, it's they're making it look like it's taxation. Nigerians don't like taxation. Generally, they think you're parting with something and all of that. And of course, it also shows, it goes to show how patriotic we are as a people. It also goes to show whether we truly believe in the survival of our country and the prospects of flourishing. Because if we truly believe in the survival of Nigeria and its prosperity as a people, we will be a lot more encouraged to do that which is needful without waiting for government to nudge us on to do that. So I think going forward, the federal government should acknowledge the fact that the people are not ordinarily enthusiastic about birth and death registration, and that there is need to mount a sustained campaign to get them to see how mutually beneficial doing that will be to everybody in this country, so that we can voluntarily do that. We need to get to a point where in a community, if you fail to register death or birth, the community leaders would rise against you. That way, the community would have co-owned it as part of the culture of the community. It's something that we need to imbibe as part of our culture for our collective survival as a people.
Now that would take me aback when you mentioned, and you said we shouldn't leave it for the government or the governance alone. It's something, it's you and I. It's you and I, you know, for Census to be active, or when I say proactive, it's an effort between you and I. When you mentioned the community leaders, you know, you said community leaders should come out and say, okay, why did you not record the birth and if it's birth or death in that particular community? Now, looking forward, what sort of awareness do you think the National Population Census should do? Since you said, okay, it's not a one man's, it's not for the government alone or governance alone. For someone who is listening and said, okay, fine, I want to make an effort. One, I'm patriotic. Two, I want to be involved in part of the issues of Nigeria as a whole when it comes to census, knowing the numbers we are. When you mentioned issues of development, foreign partners, and all of that, an individual listening, what are the steps one can take?
Well, I think number one, government, right from the presidency, should demonstrate the political will. They should demonstrate sufficient commitment to this change of attitude on the part of Nigerians. That's number one. The National Population Commission is just, well, the agency that is primarily saddled with this responsibility. Yes, but it shouldn't be left for it alone. Government agencies like National Orientation Agency should come in. Federal Ministry of Information should come in. Then, media organizations, government-owned media organizations such as NTA, FRCN should also come in. Indeed, as part of the social responsibility of privately owned media organizations such as yours, should also play a part. And I think that civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, NGOs, and all of that, they all have roles to play. The town unions, community leaders, and all of that will also have a role to. It has to be a broad spectrum of the Nigerian society coming together to preach one thing, because that's when we would have given it the right assent. If we don't, if we allow government to do it alone, we're not going to have the required outcomes. The people themselves must realize that in our little corners, that there is a role that we can. If I'm influential in my local assembly where I worship as a Christian, then nothing stops me from, okay, talking to young people whose ears I enjoy. And then from there, they too, they have their own many constituencies that they can influence. They can also spread it from there. We need to be conscious of this fact that much as we criticize the government and say they've not done this, they've not done that, and all of this, nation building is not a tax for the public sector alone. It also requires conscious effort by the people. We need elite consensus. We also need mass action. While the elites, our leaders, do their part, the masses should also do their part. Otherwise, we will remain where we are as a people. So I think that we need synergy, we need collaboration between both the public and private sector. We need the support of international community, if they mean well for us truly to see that greater awareness is created in that regard, and then we have a birth and death control registers, a lot healthier and then a lot tidier.
A lot healthier and a lot tidier. I like that. Now, I know we've mentioned some of the challenges, insecurity and all of that. Do you think there are other challenges that we need to nip in the bud in order for a successful census to be conducted in Nigeria?
The major problem we have, I think, is the cynicism of the average Nigerian. That is the major problem. Some are cynical, some are pessimistic.
Sure.
And you wouldn't blame them because this is a function of their past experiences.
Oh, yes.
But at this point, we need to offload the hangover of yesteryears. We need to turn our backs on the abundant disappointments and shame of the past. We need to look at the future and decide to be part of those who would shape it for our own collective benefit. That way, we would have erased doubts in our hearts and approach this particular exercise with the highest level of optimism and then with unbridled patriotism. That way, I can assure you, we would have achieved at least 51% success. If we overcome the cynicism of the average Nigerian or the skepticism of the average Nigerian. Let's embrace this thing with optimism. Let's trust this government. Well, other governments or administrations may have disappointed us in the past. This one is here to disappoint us. Let's give it benefit of the doubt. For the sake of the survival of this country, please and please, I beg Nigerians to co-own this particular exercise and give it the very best support that it requires so that all of us can be beneficiaries ultimately.
Okay, let's look at prospects. Looking at prospects when it comes to census conduction, what are the prospects that we see? Let's say from now till, let's say, 5 years. What are the prospects if conducted? What prospects do you see?
Well, if it's conducted, number one, the economic outlook would have changed automatically. The way prospective investors look at us would also have changed. And I want to believe that the stark realities that the outcome would have thrown up would also make our leaders spend public funds a lot more cautiously. Yes. Because I'm very certain that we would have, the outcome is going to enable us see a whole lot of home truths that we would have to embrace and then tell ourselves the truth that indeed we are not doing well, that indeed we need to cut down on a whole lot of things, that indeed we cannot afford the present luxuries that we are indulging in at this point. And then it will also help us to reprioritize as a nation. So I believe 5 years down the line after the census exercise, our spending habits would have changed as a people, and that would have rubbed off positively on infrastructure, it would have rubbed off positively on the education sector, on the health sector, and other critical sectors of the economy.
All right, let's quickly go on a quick break. Don't go anywhere inside today. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back, and it's Inside Today on Global Television, and it has been a ride that I'm sure most individuals out there are listening attentively, because I am here with a very important personality, no other than Mr. Chuks Akamadu, and he is here and he's throwing more light when it comes to census, when it comes to the challenges and the prospects. And you know, it has really opened my own eyes when it comes to this issue at hand. Mr. Chuks, thank you so much for being here again. I really appreciate it. Now, I want to look at a particular sector, the Bureau of Statistics, when it comes to the National Population Commission and the Bureau, how well do you think they've worked together to ensure the statistics are accurate and useful for national development? Because we will be diving into their statistics working together. Do you think the outcome will be accurate, or in your own words?
Well, I think their jobs are clearly cut out for them. National Population Commission undertakes periodic head count, whereas National Bureau of Statistics, does its own findings very regularly. They could give you weekly statistics, they could give you monthly, they could give you quarterly or annual, and all of that. But so far, so good. I think National Bureau of Statistics have been doing quite well. I've not seen anybody so far suggest that or the activities are impeachable. No, not at all. They are a credible organization, and
yes, they are.
And that's why if we also establish National Population Commission as a credible organization, two of them working hand in hand would actually help all of us. It will help drive the economy. It will help rev up economic activities. It will help, like I said, it will help people plan better. You see, what we are talking about is such that federal government should take seriously. Because, like I said, yes, they require the support, the collaboration and cooperation of the people. But the government will always have to take the lead. You see, if you look at the cultural tourism industry, for instance, you will find that, we've all been happy that Nollywood is doing well. And we are very happy that our music industry is also doing very well and all of that. But it will shock you that that sector really does not have any arm that is primarily saddled with data gathering for planning purposes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. And I can assure you also that even the national policy for culture that we have in this country is dated 1988. Oh, yes, it is a military legacy. How can we be using a 35-year-old cultural policy for a country like ours? Come on, the world has become so competitive. Yeah. Do you understand? We cannot elect on our own to take the back seat. We don't do that. You don't do that in this very fiercely competitive world today. I can assure you the national policy for culture 1988 did not envisage anything called robotics or AI. So how do we now begin to think of how to preserve and grow our tourism sector in the face of AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics? Something has to be done. And again, like I said, it shows how we treat issues of governance with levity. These figures are important. These data are important. Yes. We actually need them for planning purposes. So do not be surprised that today we do well in the cultural tourism sector, that tomorrow we might not do well. That's one area that Nigerians ordinarily ought to have seen as a low-hanging fruit in terms of economic diversification. But we don't even have the basic documents. It will shock you to even know that we don't even have a tourism master, we don't even have a tourism policy in this country. And yet, monies have been allocated to Federal Ministry of Tourism for next year, for the whole of 2000. And I'm wondering, what are you being guided by? Do you understand what I'm saying? What has informed allocation of resources to the subsectors of that particular sector? Yeah, I don't know. We ordinarily ought to have a tourism, an extant tourism policy that should determine or dictate what goes to where, what goes to ecotourism, what goes to cultural tourism, do you understand what I'm saying? What plans do we have for the 5 different tourism clusters we have this country? Okay, this tourism cluster, have we ever even done any evaluation of the 5 tourism clusters we have that was created by Obasanjo's administration in 2005. We have not done that. No comparative analysis, no peer review mechanism whatsoever to make them competitive, which would have, of course, had tremendous impact on our economy. Yes, like I said, this population thing is very, very key, because I expect it to have ripple effect on every facet of our national life, so that we can wake up and realize that planning is key to the survival and prosperity of our dear nation, Nigeria.
Looking at I like the fact you mentioned that it has a lot to do with the economy and, of course, development of Nigeria. That's why the population is accounting for heads, and the population is very, very important. Now, still looking at it now, how can this actually promote economic development and, of course, develop the country as a whole? How can it? Looking at the fact that we do not have a census as we speak. I mentioned at the beginning that the last time we had a census was 17 years ago. That was a long time. So how do you think the economy can actually grow and become better with census at play?
Well, that is why we are here today. We are, of course, reinforcing the fact that Nigeria has approached a very critical juncture in its life as a nation, that having approached this critical juncture, that we should not play with it, that we should take it very seriously, that this would have a whole lot to do with our destiny going forward. So it's now left for us as a people, the government and the people, to now say, oh, we must optimize this opportunity, so that, as we say, the Egyptians that we see today, that we shall see them no more. Yes, because lack of planning is like being in Egypt for us. But by the time we embrace planning, I can assure you that things, like I said, you will now see that we have prospects of our government or political actors acting with the requisite restraint and caution in their dealings with public funds. Because it would have been clear that, that truly we are overwhelmed by deficit in basic amenities, infrastructures, and key developmental indices in this country. And by the time you look at the resources we have at hand, and then the resources that we require to meet those needs, you appreciate how poor we are as a nation.
Talking about resources, do you think we have the adequate manpower and resources to even conduct an election? Are we ready?
Yeah, how much would it,
are we ready?
How much would it cost us? When our National Assemblymen are buying bulletproof cars, how much would it cost us? And the question you're asking, if you ask me, does not even arise. You know why? This is a non-negotiable exercise that must be undertaken. Like I said, it should be on first line charge.
And that is why I asked, are we ready?
Well, it's left for government to demonstrate its willingness.
With what we have seen so far, are we ready?
Well,
with all of this postponement, with all of this 200 billion naira shoved aside for the preparation for the census, are we ready?
I would like to say that we are ready.
Okay.
For one reason, the fact that I have elected to give government benefit of the doubt. This is the first time. Don't forget that this present administration inherited a budget that was prepared by its predecessor. Now they are here. I believe they are ready. I believe they understand the imperative of conducting this census exercise. And they also understand that having sunk so much money into the project itself, that it will be double jeopardy for us if eventually it did not hold. So I expect the current administration, being an offshoot of the immediate past one, to make sure that the money expended on this project already does not go down the drain. Let them push it to its logical conclusion, and I can assure you that Nigeria will be the better for it. I do not see what they will benefit from having this particular exercise botched.
So still looking at census now, you feel there is still hope that we can still conduct a peaceful and successful census exercise without any hitches in the nearest future?
Oh, there will always be hitches. There will always be hitches.
I like
that. No, there will always be hitches. Hitches will not stop us from doing that which is needful. But we should be prepared. We should be prepared to engage such contingencies, surmount them, and eventually come up with a credible census that would justify whatever resources, human and material, that had been expended on it.
Well, interesting. I have had an amazing time with you, Mr. Chuks Akamadu. I have had an amazing time. You have really enlightened us when it comes to census, bringing in the tourism sector again. Yes, we need to account for individuals in the tourist sector to know the populations and how to move forward is very important. In fact, knowing headcounts is very important. We should know in order for the economy and, of course, development of the country to actually move forward. Thank you so much. We have to call it a wrap at about this point. And Mr. Chuks Akamadu, of course, we know he has a combined qualification in law management, public relations, corporate governance, tourism management, and cultural administration. He is currently the United Nations World Tourism Organization scholar with respect to experience. He has over 300 published articles, and he is the MD of Agrotourism Limited. Afroculture Limited. Thank you so much for being a part of Insight today. I really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. And of course, I am Jumai Manson. Census, it's important. It's, in his words, it's not just for the government alone. It takes you and I for the economy to be better. Really, how can we really move forward when we do not have a number of individuals in the country? Keep it, just be real, and always remember census is very important. Let's take it very seriously. This is Insight Today. Join me tomorrow, same time, and don't go anywhere. This is Global Television. Thank you for being there. Good afternoon.